Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and support our new movement by putting Let's Go Viral in the comments section. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. But without further ado, here are your hosts, Nicely Chunga Benny and Greg King.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns blowing a 16-point lead to the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Finals and ultimately going down 3-2 in the NBA Finals series. But before we hop into all that, got to give a quick shout out to our subscriber today, as always. And today, it's going to be Broken Tubing. Thank you so much for commenting, and subscribing, turning on post notifications, and just showing so much love and support towards our YouTube channel and our podcast overall. We greatly appreciate it. Now, let's dissect Game 5 of the NBA Finals, because this is one of the most historic games that we've seen within these last 10 years, considering, the NBA Finals is one of the highest levels of, sports in general. And I want to start off with the 16-point lead being blown. Like, obviously, Phoenix, they got off to a pretty hot start. Milwaukee, it seemed like they didn't have much guidance offensively. I mean, they finished the first quarter 9-21 in comparison to Phoenix 14 of 19. They weren't really hitting from all cylinders. Phoenix did a good job, just keeping their scoring balanced. And ultimately, it felt like this was a game that was going to be very winnable for them, especially given their hot start. But in the second quarter, Jrue Holiday just took over. This guy had 14 points, ultimately finished the game with 27 points, 13 assists, shot 12 of 20 from the field. Very efficient, very proficient, and just playing his brand of basketball. And this is something that we've been waiting for him to showcase the entire postseason. And I'm glad he's finally been able to, touch bases on that. But Greg, what happened last night to the Phoenix Suns from offensive and defensive standpoint?
Man, they just got out bullied, and they just got away from what they were doing. Like you said, what you touched on, they got everybody involved. Jay Crowder had 8 points. He knocked down 2 threes in the first quarter. Devin Booker got going. DeAndre Ayton got going. He had 8 points. I mean, even Chris Paul dished out 4 assists. Like they did the right things in the first quarter. Very efficient. But the second quarter was like, not really did they stop playing. I just think that the Bucks adjusted. Hats off to Coach Bud. And then Jrue Holiday woke up. I mean, 14 points. It started out on the defensive end, getting into Chris Paul, creating easy, getting offensive rebounds and pushing in transition, because the Bucks did have 21 points in transition. And if you look at the stat sheet, I think that was the reason why they won, because they got easy baskets, and the Suns didn't. But once Jrue Holiday got going, then Khris Middleton got going, because he started 1 for 7 in the first quarter, and then that trickled down to everybody else. And even Bobby Portis had 9 points. He came in off the bench and provided great minutes, got 2 offensive rebounds, and really just sparked that Bucks team and carried over into the second half.
Right, and I mean, just to touch bases on that, I mean, obviously, Milwaukee's transition offense is some of the best in the entire NBA that you're going to see. And I think with Giannis, just doing his what he does best, getting out in the open break, he's been a lot more of a playmaker these last couple of games within the series. I mean, early on in the series, we saw those 40-point performances, 32-point performances, those 15-plus rebound exhibitions and everything. But I think he's been able to, really exploit this Phoenix Suns defense, specifically in the open break. And he's been able to, get touches for other guys like those role players like Bobby Portis, who has been phenomenal for them these last couple rounds. Pat Connaughton, he was phenomenal last night. He shot 4 of 6 from the three-point line. A lot of that has to do with the fact that, Milwaukee is just doing their due diligence on that side of the basketball, making sure that they understand what they need every single possession coming down, not being undisciplined. And that's something that, has been one of their biggest knocks from an overall standpoint. But I think with Jrue Holiday leading the way, and then, you getting bits and pieces of contributions from guys like Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, and then what you're going to get from Khris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think it makes it a lot easier for the Bucks to, have a better chance of winning a hostile game on the road in the NBA Finals.
And then speaking of Giannis, can we give him some credit? I mean, this guy,
absolutely.
The media doesn't give him enough credit. I think for 2 40-point games in this series, he's averaging 32, 61% from the field, 13 rebounds and 5 assists. Like, he's really being the leader and the anchor of this Bucks team, and a guy who's just at 26, seeing a lot of poise and starting to see more patience and more feel, seeing a more feel that he's in. Getting a feel of the game and being more present in the moment, being more aggressive and doing the things that he needs to get his teammates involved, but also get himself involved, and knowing when to score, when to pass, and really being that defensive, also being a defensive anchor alongside Holiday on the defensive end. So I think we have to give Giannis credit, because he is one of the biggest factors to the series and the reason why they're up 3-2.
Right, and obviously we already know like what the Bucks have been able to, you know, accomplish from an offensive standpoint these last couple of games. But what is the problem with Phoenix? I mean, I think in the third quarter they were very reluctant on Devin Booker from an offensive standpoint.
I totally agree, man. I mean, they just a lack of ball movement, not really getting Campaign or Mikal Bridges or even Jay Crowder enough shots. Like, Jay Crowder finished with 7 shots, Mikal Bridges only 6, Cameron Johnson only 3. And these guys played big chunks of minutes, just did not get a lot of touches for them.
Right, and it's like, it's not like Devin Booker is, you know, coming up with a lot of empty possessions on the offensive end. Like, he went 17 of 33 last night. But I just feel like if, you know, maybe he goes something like 17 of maybe like 25 from the field, and then you dish out those extra 7-8 shots in between guys like Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, or maybe Jay Crowder, you probably have a better shot of winning the game, because now you're getting production from your entire unit rather than just 1 to 2 players. Because I feel like Phoenix, these last couple of games, they've been very ISO heavy, especially with Devin Booker. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Milwaukee's switching, and they like the matchup from an offensive standpoint ultimately. But I think that you have to understand what your team needs from you every single possession, because ultimately we already know what Devin Booker is going to do for us from an offensive standpoint, but we have to make it adamant that we can make sure we keep the hot hand going for guys like Jay Crowder, keeping DeAndre Ayton warm, and then ultimately Chris Paul will hopefully turn things around in the second half and, you know, just bring home a W for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, you brought this up one time when we were talking. Like, you can't just win the game with ISO ball. Like, you got to get everybody involved. And I think Phoenix is a team that has normally got everybody involved. And I think like a quick stat that people don't know about, like when Mikal Bridges doesn't shoot more than 10 shots, they're 4 for 6 or 4 for 5. If I'm wrong about that stat, but they just not getting the right role players involved and getting really hurts this team, because Devin Booker, yes, we know that he can play make, but that's not really, this is a guy who's just going to go get buckets, and he's not really going to look for the open teammates. And especially even on the last play when he saw him turn the ball over, like I see what he was trying to do, but the length and the toughness of, and the awareness and the communication by the Bucks to swarm him on that last play and not really finding his teammates, I think that hurt them in the second and third quarter, a situation like that.
Yeah, and I think Milwaukee's off-ball defense, like, they've been phenomenal with their rotations, and that's typically what the Suns have been able to do to get them to this point, ultimately playing in the NBA Finals. But they haven't been able to do that on the defensive side of basketball, them giving up a lot of offensive rebounds. Now, I don't have much of a problem with, you know, looking at the stat line and, you know, Milwaukee only out rebounding them by 3 to 5 rebounds, but I have a problem when, you know, we're just not giving effort from that category of the basketball. I mean, there's been a lot of times where they're just too reluctant on DeAndre Ayton to, you know, come up with the boards, and they haven't been really disciplined or very attentive on that side of the basketball, because basically we get on Chris Paul about throwing a lot of turnovers, and he only had 1 turnover last night, but it's basically a live ball turnover when you're giving up an offensive rebound, because I think that's another thing that's been making it a little bit deflating for the Phoenix Suns, and ultimately it's kind of affecting them on the other side of the basketball as well, because now basically instead of you know, having 1 hard defensive possession, you're now having to, you know, play hard for 2 defensive possessions, and ultimately you're going to be aghast when you get to the other side of the basketball. But I think one thing that, you know, Phoenix has really been effective by, besides, you know, the rebounding category, you know, just the points in the paint that they've been giving up, is the fact that Milwaukee has done a better job defensively when guarding the pick and roll. Now, we saw Mike Budenholzer make the adjustment by, you know, limiting Brick Lopez's minutes. We've been seeing a lot more Bobby Portis, and he's somebody that has a lot better opportunity of, you know, containing guys coming out of the pick and roll. He's got the ability to, you know, switch and everything. You know, sometimes the switching hurts them to a certain degree depending on the matchup defensively. But I felt like Chris Paul, he's not able to get to that 15-foot mid-range jumper that, you know, he's so that's such a big part of his game, because, you know, when you take that away from him, it kind of, you know, ultimately forces him to be a legitimate playmaker now, and, you know, he just doesn't have the opportunity to really put all that much pressure on the defense, because he's not able to really get off that shot. And then we also have to talk about Jrue Holiday just fighting through those screens, whether it's off-ball screens or, you know, just pick and roll screens. And I think Chris Paul's also feeling you know, his presence a lot. You know, he's Jrue Holiday's doing a great job, you know, just getting within his airspace, and he's already given up a height advantage. So it's going to be a lot easier for Jrue Holiday to, you know, kind of contain guys like Chris Paul whenever, you know, the Milwaukee Bucks are playing great team defense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to continue on your point with the switching, it's the way they're switching on the perimeter and the guys that they're doing it with. Like that, we saw sometimes Jrue Holiday was on Devin Booker, he switched on Devin Booker, or Giannis even switching on Chris Paul. Like I thought that was really effective. Or Chris Middleton, like just always throwing a big body at these smaller guards. I think that helped the Bucks a lot, and I think they should continue that, because like you said, it's putting them in tough situations where now either Devin Booker has to play make, or Devin Booker's going to force up an inconsistent shot because of like 33 shots. I mean, some of those shots were inconsistent, or Chris Paul has to throw up a tough shot, or making him play make and making him see over taller defenders. So it's very, very effective. Very, very effective.
I think if Phoenix wants to come out with a win in, this following game, heading into an elimination game on the road, they have to be disciplined for an entire 48-minute game. Because ultimately, they've been able to, really have some pretty key quarters. Like specifically the first quarter, they shot 14 of 19 compared to, Milwaukee's 9 of 21. But, when you get outscored 43 to 24 in the second quarter, and then that just carries over to the third quarter, and you're not getting any bench production because you have one guy, being so ISO heavy, and you're relying a lot on your two-man game, it just isn't going to be a good recipe for success, especially when you're playing at the highest level, which is the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we talked about this before. I mean, the Suns are a team that's just these past 3 games are really just beating up on themselves, just not doing the things that they normally do. Like, it starts with Chris Paul for real. But I also think that with him and his leadership, it's not trickling down to everybody else. They're not stagnant on offense, not a lot of ball movement, and just not doing the little things right, and also just careless mistakes by them. And that's not something that we've seen from the Suns team, and I think they need to correct that if they want to win this series.
Yeah, but ultimately they just have to continue to make shots, and I think that'll carry over to the defensive end. Now, if Milwaukee continues to shoot at a high level, and they're getting a lot of high percentage looks, you can call the series over, because basically with Phoenix, they had a few opportunities, close the series out, basically. I mean, in game 4, they could have easily went up 3-1. They had a few leads late in the fourth quarter. Those were blown. And then we seen tonight, a 16-point lead being blown in the second quarter. But, when the Bucks are shooting 71% in the second half, and then you have 3 players combined for 88 points to finish the game, it's going to be really hard to, close the series out going up against a 2-time MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I totally agree. Any more points you want to bring up about this game, Nancy?
Well, fun fact, Giannis and Khris Middleton, the second players in NBA history to score 500 points and dish out 100 assists. If those two continue to play at a high level, I find it really hard for Phoenix, coming out and, forcing a game 7.
Totally agree.
But let us know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. NBA season is almost over. Let's hope that the Phoenix Suns can head into Milwaukee for Game 6 in an elimination game and, force a Game 7 by playing hard, playing with a lot of urgency, and, just getting back to their bread and butter. But besides that, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notification if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. But, besides that, it's your boy, Nicey Chunga Benny. I'm here with my co-host, Greg King, and we out.
We out.